Welcome to the next question, and my name is Byron. I'm founder and Chief Transformation Officer of NEXXT. So I'm inspired for today's podcast a little bit by a couple of stats that I saw recently. One was that less than a quarter of employees in the Americas, the most AI forward, I guess, country in the world, have had any formal sort of a training from their employer in terms of AI. The second was that in terms of the split of actual use in companies at the moment, that it was more than twice the number of users in that 18 to 30 range than there are in the 50 plus range, which I guess categorize myself in at this point now, in terms of adoption of AI. And so I thought that was an interesting moment to start to explore the premise of leadership in this moment. We're at a moment where the rules of innovation organically and organizationally and individually are being rewritten. AI isn't just changing how we work, but it's reshaping who drives that change, how leadership is expressed, and where transformation originates. And for many, that shift is forcing legacy organizations and legacy leadership models to evolve faster than ever before. So to explore that, I'm joined today by Brad Hintze, Executive Vice President of Marketing at Crestron. Many of you would know. But Crestron's a company long recognized for its role in shaping this industry, from engineering trailblazers like George Feldstein and Fred Bargetzi, crafting how we integrated and enabled the connected spaces we all now take for granted, to investing in the foundations of learning and community identity that have helped shape the industry as it is today. So in this first season of NEXXT podcasts, we're focusing on voices like Brad's, leaders with established industry platforms who are also leaning into this AI-driven inflection point with curiosity, conviction, and a clear sense that this is not just a tech shift, but a leadership shift. So as someone who's played a major role in helping craft Crestron's story of the future, I thought we'd try and take a bit of a leadership journey today, starting at that 30,000 foot perspective, Brad, that you carry around, where this industry is headed, then working our way down into the real actions, decisions, and frictions happening inside Crestron's walls. So welcome to the podcast.
Great. Thank you, Byron. Very happy to be here. I've enjoyed our many conversations we've had over the last, it's been several years that we've been working closely together, but on this topic specifically in the last few months, there's so much for us all to think about and to integrate into our daily work lives and personal lives too, actually.
Yeah, indeed. So look, I thought perhaps we'd start with your personal story. I guess it's been almost 5 years, I think, at Crestron, and that has been anything but a quiet 5 years, I guess, as you stepped in the midst of COVID and have had CEO transitions and all sorts of supply chain crisis and so on to deal with. So I don't think anyone of us envies the role you've played. But perhaps you can just give a bit of background to perhaps what we don't know about that journey to get here, a journey of progression to leadership that's obviously spanned many years, but many technology shifts and so on as well, and perhaps sort of compare that to the moment now and how you see that sort of shaped the perspectives from your standpoint now.
Yeah, it has certainly been a wild ride since I've been here at Crestron. I think that, when you look at what we have encountered over the last five years in this industry, I think not only the world, but our industry and our company has been going through a dramatic change, right? I joined at the end of 2020. We were all we've been cooped up in our houses for 9 months, and we were on the cusp of being able to come out a little bit. And so the world was still reeling from that change. But as we have emerged from all of those challenges related to that point in time, the way people do work has changed dramatically. We've introduced new products that are designed around the needs of this space. And then as an organization at Crestron, we have new leadership. We have a new CEO, Dan Feldstein. We have a new CSO. We've never had a CSO before, John Clancy, who's really great to work with. We have also new product leadership, Alex Paris, the VP of Product Management. We have John Pavlik, who's the EVP of Engineering as well. So we have a lot of those that have been deeply embedded in the Crestron legacy, but are now in these new roles, and that's shifted some of the tone in the way we engage. But most importantly, it has actually deepened our resolve and commitment to our customers and our channel. We talked about this just a few weeks ago at Masters. We call this our True Blue commitment to making sure that our customers and our channel partners are deeply successful. We do that by investing in really great products. We do that by investing in the people, in the services, everything they need to go and be successful. And then we invest in building a channel that helps ensure our customers have the local resources and support that they need to be successful as well. So I think that, in all of that, this commitment to success and commitment to exceptionalism has been a constant. But I think that the evolution in technology is one of the things that has been most exciting for me. I've had a long career in marketing, and the thing that I love the most is that marketing sits at the intersection of product and the way business gets done, mostly out in the field and customers, right? We're sitting at that intersection between product and sales. And what's really happening out in the market. And so it's been really thrilling to see as the world has wrestled with things like return to office. What does that look like? This new AI era really accelerating in the last couple of years. How do we shift the way work gets done? And how do we apply the technologies that we know and we can rely on in this new era? So those have been things that have been really exciting to be a part of, for sure.
So let's take that moment of leadership up to that 30,000 foot level, and even take the Crestron hat off for the moment, and just in this moment of opportunity and so on. Yeah, what's the compass, I guess, that drives both your optimism and maybe even some of your fear around this moment? Some would argue a transformational sort of revolutionary moment, I guess, a fourth industrial revolution even is sort of some of the words that are used. But what's exciting you about what our industry has opportunity to leverage and have impact in? What are those big picture compasses that are guiding the decisions that you make individually and or organizationally?
Well, I think that anchoring in those things that will always be true are the best way to push through transformation and take advantage of it. And there are several things that we know will always be true within our industry, right? We know that organizations will need to collaborate and need to empower their employees to get their work done. And we know that they will need to do that both remotely and in person, and that they want to remove as much complexity as possible to enable all of those things. So we know that is true, right? Second, we know that there will be more technology, not less. And that technology can provide and can play a strategic role in enabling businesses. There are so many really interesting trends that have been happening in the last 10 years that are enabled solely by technology. You think about things like remote telehealth. You think about, what would have happened 15 years ago if we had to shut down everyone coming into the office? Could we have gotten stuff done? So all of those things strategically enabled businesses. Entire businesses are being defined by their ability to support customers remotely, provide services remotely without a physical brick and mortar. All of this was enabled by the cloud, by internet, by mobile, all of these things, so it's a really great trend that will only continue. So they need great experiences to enable collaboration. We know that there will be more technology, not less. We know that they're all dealing with how do you scale all of that. And we as an industry, Crestron and the rest of our industry, we're in a unique position to be able to enable simple collaboration. We're in a position where we can deliver scale, help them to bring this technology to all of the spaces. And so, I think that there are some that would say, oh no, in a world where there's a return to office mandate, does that mean you don't need remote? Like, no, it's actually, you need more of that.
Well, I think that the thing that excites me in that reference you're talking about to collaboration is really our relationship with AI never more so than now in terms of technology enablement, is a collaborative one. It's largely, I guess, we're all pretty used to now an LLM in some form or another, a ChatGPT, that we can engage on a one-to-one basis. But I think what gets really interesting in the future is when that becomes more collaborative in terms of group collaboration. What happens in the meeting room, for example, in a year or two's time, when it's not just an agent that takes notes or whatever, that actually becomes a subject matter expert that's digitally engaging with the humans in the room. That's when I think that power of that human plus AI collaboration really becomes interesting.
Well, I think that's the power of the moment that we're in, too, is that we as individuals have started to embrace and leverage these tools. And the unique thing for our industry is that those individual experiences are setting the expectations for people when they walk into a space. Right. And that, I think, is an exciting moment for all of us that we have to pay attention to. We've seen this before, right? Think about it. The BlackBerry existed. People loved that they could get their keyboard or their phone with a little keyboard and do email. And then suddenly iPhone came out, and that totally changed the paradigm. And then you had employees demanding to IT departments within the enterprise, I need you to support this iPhone, right? And for a long time, it wasn't. And we're in that same place now where people are using LLMs personally, or they're doing it quietly for their job. And now they're demanding, I need this in my daily work life. And when I go into a meeting room, I need these things too. And then they're going to start saying, I want it to be a subject matter expert. I want it to be an assistant. And, we have to think about how can we support that from an infrastructure perspective? How can we support that from a user and experience perspective? How can we support that by integrating all of the best versions of that technology to enable those things? And those are the elements that really give me a lot of optimism about this moment.
So let's pull back to this leadership story here. Crestron has had various industry facing leadership roles in the last number of years. If you can perhaps claim the mantle that Crestron has in influence and contribution to the industry. But talk about the burden and perhaps the privilege that is, whether it's self-serving in terms of the benefit to Crestron or philanthropic more broadly to the industry, but to carry that responsibility in this moment of uncertainty and how organizationally Crestron has and is having to shift what that leadership responsibility looks like to the industry. How does a company like your scale with the legacy and industry weight that comes with that legacy, what does it mean to lead when your size is perhaps both your advantage and your anchor in this moment?
Well, I think that we talk about this a lot, actually, and Dan Feldstein and we spent some time this morning talking about it and preparing for things, as we're talking to the industry about what is important to Crestron. At the end of the day, his priority is ensuring that we're delivering great experiences for our end customers and supporting our channel partners. So that's the first and foremost responsibility that Crestron feels and that Dan prioritizes on a day-to-day basis. With that comes the responsibility, of course, to continue to push and deliver really excellent products that deliver on the needs of customers and help an integrator be able to build a business around it. And so that's a responsibility to make sure that those that have staked their livelihood around Crestron, we continue to support their ability to do that. But we also need to continue to innovate. That's certainly been our history and our legacy. And so we certainly feel a responsibility, but we don't feel that as a responsibility as much as it's just our passion. That's what we wake up and want to do day to day is innovating.
I guess I'm sort of trying to stretch beyond the product innovation and into the role that those key voices I talked about have played in teaching the industry. Mm-hmm. At some point, leadership's about the rising tide floating all boats. It's about equipping and enabling people to transition, and of course those with loud voices have an opportunity to do that beyond many. And so I guess Crestron's always had that sort of a role to play.
Yeah, certainly. And the way we've approached it in the last several years, we do a number of different things. We participate in organizations like this, where we share more from a thought leadership perspective, what it is that we're thinking and in what motivates us. Certainly, we get involved heavily with AVIXA and other organizations like that, NSCA. But we probably invest more than any other manufacturer that I know in training for our channel and for our end customers. It was just recently we were in Madrid for Crestron Masters. We'll do it again next year, late next year in the US, where we are investing heavily to bring the staff of our integrators and staff and customers and train them on our technology, but also discuss design trends and other things too to help arm them. And so, we invest heavily there. We invest heavily in our tech support teams, both are those that answer the phone, answer chats, answer emails, but also the groups that will go on site and help a customer in a situation where they need a little bit more support. So those are investments that we make to ensure that our channel partners are successful. And that's a really big one. But then we also work really closely with partners like Zoom and with Microsoft. Where are they headed? How can we build products that help enable that too, right? So as we align all of these things, we view those as contributions to bringing the rest of the industry along in this as we go. But, anchoring it back into, we know customers need more technology. We know they need super simple experiences, and we know that we need to help our channel deliver on those experiences at scale. If we keep focused on those goals and make some of these investments, we can help bring people along on that journey.
Look, I think the very paradigm of learning is even shifting in this moment, and how AI can personalize learning. So I think the tradition of having someone standing in front of a room of hundreds of people, or a recorded video course, is starting to shift in the value that it has when it's not as personalized. But so I'm gonna bring this back to you, perhaps a little more narrowly in your leadership role. I'd argue that you've perhaps become very much a face for Crestron in recent years through your social media presence. You offer a very personal style of sharing yourself and your perspective, and thereby building the rapport and trust that the industry has in your and Crestron's leadership and so on. But there was a moment a number of months ago that struck me, which was actually my first awareness of the Google LM podcast. But in that instance, you threw it out there. You recorded something, or threw some stuff into that LLM, yep, and just shared it as an experiment, as a give me some feedback and so, yep, on. And I think that's a moment of leadership lesson that we can all learn from in terms of being willing to be transparent, being willing to experiment, being willing to fail as much as succeed and so on. And so, perhaps, yep, talk about how you've embraced that leadership model, yep, individually in your own brand as much as Crestron.
Yeah, so this actually harkens back to earlier on in my career. In the early Web 2.0 days, I was involved with a couple of different startups and building software development tools. And this was early days. Like, you remember when we went from MapQuest to Google Maps, and suddenly it was from page refresh to drag and drop and shift around right inside of a browser. It was at that time, a new technology. Ajax was invented or coined, and you have all this discussion around APIs and integrating things like Salesforce and Microsoft and Google and Yahoo and all these things. And so I spent actually a lot of time in San Francisco going to hackathons. And you have all these super smart people, and they would just go in a room, lock themselves in a room, come up with an idea, they would hack on that, and then at the end of the day, they would stand up and they would say, this is what I built and this is why. And it would invariably be a toy. Once in a while, it would become something cooler, right? During that exercise, I met Brett Taylor, who's now the chairman of the board at OpenAI. I met Aaron over at Box, right? All of these major brands, these major leaders that went on to build multi-billion-dollar businesses and drive major product organizations. They got there through that kind of experimentation and learning. And we're at that same moment with AI as we were in the Web 2.0 era, where you have all these new technologies coming together, and you have to experiment and find ways to leverage it, and then you iterate and create around that. And so hopefully, the sharing things like that publicly, they're all an effort to explore so that we collectively can iterate and come up with some really great ideas for how we leverage this technology, right? LLMs and, OpenAI and ChatGPT and Claude and all these other things are really exciting tools. But this is only the beginning. And what will really become powerful is when product manufacturers can take that technology and apply it to things in a new and unique and interesting way. And we only get there through that iteration and exploration. So that's part of what has motivated me to be open about and share some of those things so that I can learn from others, but then also show some of the things that I'm experimenting with as well.
Well, look, and I think that's how leaders set culture within their organizations. But I love the hackathon premise. To me, that's a premise that really, as an industry, we need to coach and learn on far more. We're not necessarily that great at doing that. But so let's bring this back into practical terms of where much of that hack effort comes from is not necessarily from sticking, C-level executives into boardrooms and coming up with ideas. That needs to come from the front lines and so on. So I know you've brought someone with you today to introduce to help us dig a little bit more into some of that. How do people listening start to really see themselves in this, see whatever role they might be in an organization? And so we'll try and expose stories through the podcast of where that's become practical, real, tangible innovation that's come from within the organization. So perhaps you can tee us up here a little bit with who you've brought in to join you and talk a little bit about the practical realities of not so much product-oriented innovation, but organizational innovation within the Crestron organization.
When you asked me to, or offered that I could invite someone on, I immediately thought about Matt Paupst, and he is our VP of Technical Support, ATSG Pro Services, and I immediately thought about him because, as we talked about, he's been the most vocal and the most productive in terms of evangelizing how internally at Crestron we could leverage AI to make the entire experience better, both for our internal employees, but also for our external partners that interact with us as well. And so I thought that having Matt share some of his journey for how we get there, there are very real IT implications, very, very real legal considerations that we have to get through, and he navigated those with those teams. And so I thought sharing his perspective might be something that people could get some benefit from.
Well, high praise and high expectation here, Matt, from some of your story.
Oh boy, thanks, Brad, thanks, Byron. So AI as a whole right now it's really exciting for our industry. Just here at Crestron alone, we've got close to 3,000 shipping products, and each one of those products has some kind of a manual or a guide for setting it up, and it's cross-platform. And we've got a series of tech support agents that around the world, multiple languages, that need to be able to help our customers. And by implementing some internal AI tools, we've been able to now sift through all of those documents in real time and be able to have a conversation with a piece of paper, which you couldn't do years ago. And the benefits have certainly been, they've well proven themselves. We've got over close to 10,000 hours in labor saved alone, and it's reaching about 150,000 questions that have been asked internally just to help our customers and give them a better experience overall. It's resulted in shorter wait times on the phones, faster resolutions to problems, and quite frankly, really complicated issues getting solved quickly.
So what tell us a bit about the genesis of that. Where did the the energy for that come from?
The energy of that came from a bit of a personal experience that I started with. At home, I have been tinkering with AI for a while now, and little LLMs running on MacBooks and such. And I started bringing things like instruction manuals into it and started doing comparisons of, this is a problem I've got, this is the result I want to get, how do I get from point A to point B? And I don't run a supercomputer, so I would run, ask it a question, hit enter, go get a cup of coffee kind of deal, not like you can with ChatGPT or any of the large LLMs. And then I started exploring a little bit more, and I said, well, wait a minute. We've got thousands of documents scoured on our website based on either the experience you're trying to give, the particular model, make, series, etc. And there's so many different versatile things that our products can do, it can get overwhelming. So how can we take all of that information and boil it down to, this is the question I have about a product, and how do I get my answer quickly? And I mean, when you pick up the phone at Crestron, you don't know what you're picking up. It could be, I've got a very simple question, this thing won't power on, or it's, I've got an in-depth C# coding problem. And the folks on the other end of the phone, they normally don't know what they're picking up. So to have an engine on the back end that can help them get to that resolution faster has been invaluable to us.
Don't forget too that, I mean, there's so many different sources of information. He talked about the 3,000 products and the product manual. Those product manuals may be PDF, they may be published in HTML, but we have product information on our website. We have prior case histories. So we have sales enablement tools that we have exposed to our teams and to our dealers as well. So there's this gigantic corpus of information that his agents didn't traditionally have access to. And so bringing it all into a place where it was conversationally accessible really was a great way to give them an ability to respond quickly, right?
I mean, I love the story of the genesis, that it started with tinkering and experimentation and led through, because that's so much of the way innovation should occur. But I love the service element to this as well, because particularly for our industry, that's always been a challenge. But generically, service has this premise of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, where in essence what you're saying to a customer of that customer support process is, we're going to give you someone who knows less, and then we're only slowly going to get to the point where that experience and knowledge, depth of knowledge is accessible to you. And AI is really flipping that switch to say that level of depth is there for anyone. Now, in fact, the customer service agent can focus on the experience of that customer service, the resolution approach and so on, the human elements of that, without being burdened by a lack of 20 years of experience in mistakes and challenge and so on.
Well, yeah, one of the great things that this technology has allowed us to do is it actually brings us to a tierless support system. So that agent has access to all of the knowledge, all of the information that they need. And if they hit that glass ceiling where they've asked the question and they can't get the proper answer, then they can escalate it up to a team much faster. So they know that they've checked off all the boxes, they've gathered all the information, and then they've put a nice package together to hand off to the escalation team, like Brad was saying with our advanced technical support group. That's the boots on the ground kind of team that will go out to a job site. Now they're going out way more prepared, because we know all of the back end work has been done, and the basics, the published knowledge, even the internal information has already been tried on that job site, and it's now a much deeper problem that we have to really get eyes on.
Yeah, look, for an industry that's been so full of customization and bespoke, and that's we've perhaps engineered some of that out, but in fact maybe to our detriment, because at some point rather than one room that serves all, AI is allowing more of a personalization, and so I actually see some more personalization to the industry coming. But I think so much opportunity for us to leverage just that very service premise in the industry moving forward to really transformationally change everything from customer experience to foundational business model in the forefront. But perhaps just in sort of wrapping some of this up, I'm sure that journey wasn't a smooth and easy one. What are some lessons that perhaps you might give that every man or woman in the industry, wherever they may be in the organisation, to take that step up, to believe that they have a leadership opportunity in this moment, maybe not in the C-suite executive boardroom, but at the engine room level where they can bring these ideas forward and take that tinkering and bring it through to real application and impact in an organisation?
Yeah, so there's a couple different approaches to that. So on the engine room level, there's always this inherent fear that AI is going to take my job. And that used to be the way that folks referred to it. They said, oh, okay, this new computer out there, it's just going to take my job. And that's not what it is. AI is going to allow us to handle the day-to-day mundane tasks, while we as leaders can then go back and invest in our employees, send them to that specialized training. So it gives you a bit of this psychological comfort to know that you're not going to be replaced by a machine, but you're going to be freed by it. Okay? From the C-suite level coming down, it really comes down to the use cases that you're presenting. One of the largest challenges that we faced here and that I faced was looking at the return on the investment and being able to explain that use case properly to the folks that have to evaluate the things like security, the legal aspects. There's so much data that is going to be crossing on these LLMs. Is it secured? Is it privatized? Is it masked? And those are the large concerns, especially for a company of our size, having so much intellectual property, that we need to make sure that all of that data is secure no matter where it goes, because it could be housed somewhere privately that there is no external access to, but now we have to give some of that access to these large language models. And there's some approaches that are being taken where, depending on the use case itself, you can actually privately host these LLMs in your own virtual private cloud, so that your information never leaves your tenant and doesn't have to go out to the large language models that are publicly available. Things that are available on our website, and there is a future in us providing customers these resources. As far as our SDKs, our APIs, our manuals, everything is available publicly on our website. That's the kind of stuff that we can push the heavy lifting off to the large language models that are publicly available. But for internally, hosting all of that within our own virtual private cloud really seems to be the way to go. It makes the legal teams, the InfoSec teams, all the IT infrastructure teams, it's already there. It's already in place. It's already been validated and approved. So that's a much easier journey and security path that we're looking at right now.
What Matt has uncovered being on the forefront of this internally is certainly the journey that we have to take as we go through the different groups within the organization, right? As I mentioned earlier, there are very real IT considerations that we need to navigate. You have to partner with IT to understand that. There are very real legal implications as well. Some of it is unsettled. The world doesn't know yet, issues of territories and where things are happening, where the liabilities related to that, copyright ownership. If I have someone generate a piece of code through an LLM, do I lose all right to the copyright for all of that source code? Right? If I use it to generate an image that I use in marketing that is similar to another image that somebody owns the copyright to, am I now liable? These are just some of the very real legal challenges that we have to navigate. So partnering with those groups to help navigate them is super critical. But as Matt said, the most important thing is to boil it down, like scope it down. What precisely are you trying to accomplish leveraging AI? Because it is easy to say, oh, we want to use AI for everything, right? And that becomes overwhelming, particularly when you're trying to wrestle with some of these issues. So scoping it down to a very specific set of use cases that you're trying to enable is an important one. But also be prepared for change too, and you have to be nimble. I mean, Matt's dealing with this now. We've integrated and beware of the consequences too, in a good way. But we integrated a tool, rolled it out to the team, started seeing all these benefits. That provider, they changed course, and so now they're going in a different direction, and we need to find someone to find another provider to replace it. We have to replace it. Like, it's easy to say, "Hey, Matt, you didn't have that tool a year ago. Why are you complaining? Why do you care?" But the reality is the team has seen the benefit. It has made an impact in a positive way. And so, of course, they're going to say, you can't leave us high and dry, right? And so now he's working on a replacement. So all of those things are very real considerations as you roll something out into production, as you work with different groups. And it's a good time. It's a fun time, but it's not always super smooth sailing.
Yeah, one other thing I'd just add to what Brad was saying, start small and start internal. That's my biggest piece of advice, because then you can begin to prove the return on the investment. When we turn this on, it started out with things that are publicly available now. How do we sift through this information? And then we started bringing in other data sources. You cannot, it's what they say, you know, how do you eat the elephant? It's one bite at a time. You cannot eat the entire elephant in one shot. So start small, start internal, show the ROI, and gain the trust of those departments that you have to partner with. And that's engineering, legal, IT, the InfoSec folks, and your own team members, because they have to trust that the tool that you're providing them is not going to provide false answers that they're going to provide to customers that ultimately would provide a bad customer experience.
So, Brad, I'll let you sort of wrap up with some final thoughts here. But in that executive role of leadership, we've heard about how to overcome some of the frictions of an organization, but real and tangible and practical ones that have to be addressed, particularly if you're at any sort of enterprise level, that's an expectation of customers, yet also the need for speed and agility to move quickly and so on. So, what I guess is your advice to whether that's the team within Crestron or frontline team within Crestron or beyond, or indeed to executive leaders as to what are those 3 or 4 key starting points in resetting a culture, in resetting an infrastructure to both be able to still manage some of those old mindsets and those legacies that we have to all be aware of, yet also be able to deal with that sort of transformational opportunity of the moment that can't get too bogged down in perfection, because in fact perfection will never occur in the rapid change that we're seeing.
In my experience, what I have appreciated and what I have seen work really well by observing others and then also trying it out on my own. Experiment, certainly play with things where you can, and so that you can get your hands on the technology and understand it. There is something magical when you go to any of the current services and you start interacting with it. It feels really exciting and it is very inspirational. So certainly use it. Second is partner with the other departments within the company to help navigate it together. That's super critical. Don't say, oh, I'll go to legal later. No, partner with them now, because as you're navigating it, so are they, and they need to navigate the real challenges. And so partner with them, partner with IT to help find solutions together. That's a really important one. And then, as Matt said too, go narrow on your use cases. Try to be internal only so that you can find some wins that you can keep referring back to, right? And then build on those successes. So Matt's success has opened the door for other areas within the business. Engineering's using it with Copilot GitHub. right? Documenting their code, writing test cases. We're using it within QA to validate the production quality, speed it up, and so you can identify and knock out false positives. All of these things will have incremental benefits to the business, and it's these wins, right? Wins within Matt's group, wins within engineering, within QA, that then leads to further wins. So I think those are some of the big pieces of advice. Experiment. Partner with the other parts of the group of the business to help bring you along, and then go narrow and internal only so that you can build on top of those wins.
Great. Well, look, thank you both for today, but for both of you, the voice that you're having in the industry to share that story and so on. I think it's just so important for us to be able to tell these stories in this moment of open source learning and so on, to just be sharing the stories that, as they do internally within an organization, ultimately inspire externally as well. So as we wrap up today, I guess in reflection, what I loved about this conversation is the reminder that it's not about looking for where AI might fit in an organization, in what you're doing. It's about how everyone from leadership at the top through to the front lines of an organization, you need to evolve to identify where AI can actually fit to serve a true purpose. And what Brad and Matt, I think both have reminded of us today, is that the transformation isn't one big moment. It's actually a series of small bets that are tested by people who are close to the problems and also, most importantly, empowered to act. So in a time when it's easy to chase the next best thing, I think this episode was a reminder that transformation begins with permission to try, to share, to lead, even when you're not in the room where the strategy is getting written. And that's what NEXXT ultimately is here for, to help elevate these stories, to connect the dots and to create a space where leadership is less about title and more about traction. So whether you're in the C-suite or in tech support, if you've got something to contribute to the conversation, this is a moment in time that needs your voice. So thank you for listening today, everyone. Thanks, Brad and Matt, and we'll see you next time on the next question.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.